Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. I have the attention of some bees and I've been trying my best to breed them. The fun thing about bees, the one weird thing I have noticed so far is that because they have just like one chunky body instead of like a separate head and body like some of the other mobs do, it's actually really difficult to tell when a bee is right up close to you whether it is an adult or not, because the little bees will sometimes get really close to you, and if you see them up close, they just look like the adult bees, except they're just really close to you. So it's kind of difficult sometimes not to just feed all of your flowers to the baby bees, but eventually, yeah, see like that, that's a baby bee, but for a second there it looked like bigger than an adult, which is very disorienting. Anyway, we are going to be reading up some more bees today, because today we're going to look at how to automatically farm honey and possibly honeycomb as well, although honeycomb is a tad more complicated than the honey side of things. The main thing here that we're going to take advantage of is the fact that even without these campfires, it is possible to harvest honey and honeycomb from a hive or a nest using dispensers. So we can redstone power this thing, and that is what I'm planning on doing once I can dodge around all of the bees and get out of here. For being bugs, they actually get in your way quite a lot, so you can't just swat them aside, unfortunately, because then bad things happen. So yeah, we're going to be probably building some sort of honey farm underneath where we've got these, and then we could probably use the bee nests up there just to create a more natural looking apiary on the top of this section of the hill. I believe I was correct yesterday or the day before, whenever this video comes out, when I said that that was an apiary. So yeah, I think we're going to make a start on that. The first thing we need to do, however, is make a few more beehives, because having built some custom beehives is going to be a requirement for having the farm. I also need to check that I haven't left my redstone supplies. I have. Okay, I've left them all over at the ski village. Fair enough. I'll have to go over there and get those then. But luckily for me, I did have the supplies around here to at least demonstrate what we're planning on doing with today's episode, and we're going to be demonstrating this using dispensers. I should hopefully be able to place a dispenser around the back of here. One thing I do need to bear in mind that I don't think I quite clarified in the episode yesterday is that if you break a hive while the bees are outside of the hive, they will still get mad at you regardless of whether or not there is smoke there. They're fine with you gathering the honey the rest of the time and the honeycomb and stuff like that, but if you end up breaking the hive while the bees are out, they will get mad. So if you need to break a hive, ideally do that while the bees are inside working or while it is nighttime and the bees are going to be inside asleep. So what we have here is a dispenser facing in towards the hive, and the hive itself here has some honey inside of it. The honey level is at 5, and if I place a glass bottle inside of here and then activate the dispenser with this spruce button, it actually fills up the glass bottle and keeps it inside the dispenser. So we now have a bottle of honey. The honey level of the nest is reduced to 0, and we can actually collect that out of the dispenser. Of course, it is possible to automate that process using hoppers and redstone and comparators, so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. The next question is, am I going to be able to demonstrate with one of those hives nests in the middle that has honey in it already, because I need to be able to place the dispenser at a certain angle. You know what, I think we might be able to do that if I take out the glass here and here, and I will try my best to place a dispenser facing into that hive. Yes, okay, great, we got it, good. And now I should be able to add some shears into here if I've got the shears on me. Yes, I do. Add a button to that, shear that, and as you'll see, the honeycomb pops out. So it is possible to get both honeycomb and honey out of the hives without disturbing the bees. And while we do have each of these over a campfire right now, the bees will not get riled up if you use a dispenser on this, even if you don't have a campfire underneath it. If it is automated, the player cannot be held accountable. The player is not going to be blamed. Right now, though, while we have the smoke underneath here, I am going to get myself a little bit more honeycomb while I can, because we will need to make ourselves a few beehives in order to automate this. And we need 3 honeycomb per beehive, so this is clearly going to take a little bit of time to gather those up. I'm still breeding up the bee population as well, but once we've done that, we should be able to come back and start off our production on an automated farm. Welcome back to our thematically appropriate beehive storage area, and here is where we are going to be doing some fun stuff, harvesting the honey from beehives automatically. Now, the design I've figured out does require a little bit of space, so we're going to be able to place the first couple of beehives 2 blocks apart, there and there, but then we're going to need a little bit of space, and on the other side of the room, we're going to be placing the other 2 beehives 2 blocks apart, there and there. So we'll need a space in the middle here, and maybe that could be the space where the storage comes out, or maybe we could have the storage come out closer to the entrance. Not entirely sure at this point. Still need to figure that part out. But first of all, let's place in dispensers underneath the floor in these spaces here, and we're going to place the beehives on top of those. When they are filled up with glass bottles, we'll be able to get a honey bottle out of a full beehive and keep the honey bottle in the dispenser. It won't get spat out like it normally would from a dispenser or a dropper. It will end up going back into the dispenser, and it will either stack up there, or if we set up an item filter underneath this dispenser, we'll be able to pull any honey bottles out of the dispenser once they are received in there, and that will block the glass bottles from going through the filter and allow us to just harvest the honey. So I kind of like this design. It's turning out pretty well. We'll need a little bit of space behind here though, and I've already dug out some of that before I put this wall in, just so we can have a little bit of room to work. The way we're going to be doing this is by placing a comparator behind the spot where each of the hives is going to go. So we're going to put one hive on top of here, and that one might already have a redstone signal, but I don't know if it does. Yeah, it's got a honey level of 2, which should be detected by this comparator if I place the redstone dust there. Yes, there we go. Okay, we have an output already. Just wanted to have one there for demonstration. And if we place the other beehives there, these all have a honey level of 0 right now, so you should not see any redstone output from the comparators here. The cool thing about the comparator signal from these is it doesn't go all the way up to 15. It only goes up to 5 because the maximum honey level in one of these hives is 5. So all we need to do is have a signal strength of 5 wrapping back around to the block next to this dispenser, and that's what's going to trigger the dispenser. Now, the thing we need to worry about here, of course, is making sure that we do not end up with the redstone signal wrapping around through this redstone wire here. And for that, we simply need to place a solid block on top of there, and that should prevent the same problem. Now, okay, to make sure that we don't trigger both dispensers at once, we can't power this block in the center here, because if you trigger the dispenser without the hive being full, that is going to mean that it does just spit out an empty glass bottle, which isn't going to go anywhere and will despawn. So we're going to power this block here from the opposite side, allowing the redstone current to wrap around like that. And that's why we need to leave a gap in the middle here, because we need to do the same thing on the opposite side, and we don't want that to connect the redstone current in the middle. So each of these is going to connect up to the individual dispenser, which should, once the hive is full, drag a honey bottle out of there. And then we need to set up the item filters. Let's fill the rest of these blocks in, because I don't think we will need to worry too much about those. We need to make sure this area back here is lit, so I'll place a couple of lanterns, because I've been working with lanterns a lot lately, and we can probably have a little bit of maintenance access to this if we need to, but the rest of it can probably just get filled in with the rest of these blocks. And thanks to the hives being full blocks, we don't even need to see the comparators at the back there, so we don't have to worry too much about the appearance of the whole thing. There we go. The hives are just going to sit here, and once we get a bee from the collection of bees we have up here, we should allow... Oh, okay, we can probably get a few more hives from the honey that's up there. This should allow the bees to come out into the room, pollinate with these flowers, get back into the hive, and start producing honey. Nice and easy. The next step is going to be a little bit more complicated and will require me to dig up this little flower patch for the moment, because we need to go underneath each of the dispensers under here and make sure that we can take a hopper output that's going to feed into an item filter. The item filters themselves are going to be quite small. We don't need to worry too much about them being overflow protected, because we already have them spaced out by 1 block each time, so it's not like they're going to be right next to each other the way they would be in a storage system. But to start off, underneath each of these dispensers, we need a hopper facing forwards like so that it can be read by a redstone comparator. Let's dig my way out of here real fast, trying not to dig straight down while I do this. The second hopper here is going to go straight down, and that's probably going to go out into another chain of hoppers that's going to take all of the honey blocks to to an output on the surface over here somewhere, probably at the foot of this hill. And we could rearrange that so it has a dropper circuit or a water elevator in it to take the honey bottles rather, up to this chest here. But I'm a lot happier just having it output somewhere here on the surface where I can collect it nice and easily. Because if we want to have this whole thing produce honey for us regularly, we will need to trap the bees in here to make sure that they don't get out onto the surface. So let's start a quick hopper chain here that we can just connect the rest of those two, if it can go around the corner like this. Actually, that's going to need to come down one block more thinking about it, because we're going to have a redstone torch next to these, and I don't want it to lock any of the hoppers it isn't supposed to. So let's bring that down by one block more, and yeah, maybe we'll figure out some way of getting it up to the surface if that is down a little bit too low from here. So of course we need a block here that we're going to measure the contents of this hopper. We're going to place a redstone comparator output from there. Underneath this block here, we need to have a redstone torch attached to that block, so let's pop that there. And that's what I mean by having the redstone torch there, making sure we do not lock any of these hoppers. Let's throw an item in there. Yep, okay, that is still not powered. That's good, because otherwise that would lock and we would have problems. Now, let's place a repeater here, like so, facing into that block, and then this is where we bring 2 blocks out this way, and we place redstone dust there, there, and there. I think that should be everything for the filter. And now if we place honey bottles inside of here, they will start to filter through. And the cool thing about honey bottles is they will only stack to 16, so we need less filler items than usual in here. I'm fairly certain we will only need, I think, 38 items in here. So I'll go and get some filler material in a second. And now digging down and adding to that hopper chain that we started over this way, we should just be able to connect all of these up via a long hopper chain that's going to allow us to have all of the honey travel through to the same output over there at the end of this chain of hoppers. And now with each of those item filters set up, all we need to do is go and find some filler material that we can use to fill those in. And I think I have just the thing back over here at the farmhouse. There we go. I had renamed a bunch of stacks of netherrack as filter over there a while ago, and I feel like we can use those down here in the honey farm. And of course we could make this honey farm a little bit bigger if we wanted to. I expect we'll probably want a decent amount of honey blocks, and all you really need to do is duplicate this setup as much as you really want to. I'm sure there are ways of compacting all of this as well. This is just my first pass at it. We might be able to do even more stuff with it in future. Let's fill in the rest of this hopper chain and get access to it down here, because yeah, I threw a bunch of stuff in there while I was clearing out the cave down here. So in this top section here, we need to have a honey bottle at the front there, and that should lock the hopper nicely because the redstone torch is still lit underneath there. And then if we take 38 items is what we need. We'll need 3 in that slot there, 35 there. Now, any additional honey bottles that we end up putting in here will go straight down through into the hopper, and they should get picked up by the system. They won't end up here yet, though. Oh, nope, that one actually did. Okay, fair enough. I thought it might get stuck in the hopper below, but apparently it does not. Now it will. Okay, so that's going to pass 2 honey bottles through the system, and then the rest will all end up getting outputs over here. The next thing to do is really going to be to grab a bunch of honey out of the beehives up here, which luckily have been producing a whole bunch from what I can hear. And I can grab that one, and that one with no fuss from the bees. Thank you, bees, for all your hard work. And hopefully we should be able to bring a few of those down here in a minute. But that should allow us to fill up the rest of these filters with the honey bottles and the items we need, making sure that we have 38 items maximum inside this filter. Perfect, that's fine. And let's finish this one off over here as well. And the reason we only have 38 items in here instead of the usual, which I think is around 48, 47, something like that, is because honey bottles will only stack to 16, meaning it takes fewer of them to produce a higher level comparator output. So that should be all good to go. We can actually put the floor back on now, and the last thing we need to do is bring in these bees and make sure that the whole farm works. Actually, I'm missing a kind of important step. We do need to make sure there are glass bottles inside each of these dispensers. Let me quickly head over to the witch farm and get a few spares. Yeah, we've got to fill up each of these dispensers with as many glass bottles as we can, but leaving one slot empty. And the reason for that is that when the dispenser fires, it will pull the honey bottle back into the dispenser. But if there is no room in the dispenser, because it's not going to stack up with any of the empty glass bottles, it will just pop out. So we want to make sure we leave one dispenser slot open like this. And that's the reason why I haven't got hoppers going into these dispensers constantly feeding glass bottles in, because in order to do that, we would probably have to set up another filter system where we locked the input hopper from a chest full of glass bottles until we could make sure that there was at least one slot of the dispenser empty. And that's going to overcomplicate things. There's already enough redstone hanging out around here already. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I am just going to fill up the rest of these dispensers with the empty glass bottles, and then we can move the bees in and they can start making honey for us. Hey folks, welcome back. So our little honey production facility in here now has a slightly more populated group of hives, and the cool thing is down here in the hill, kind of inset, and we could probably figure out a better location for this, but we now have a chest which is slowly gathering bottles of honey, and we can use 4 of those at a time to make ourselves some more honey blocks. I've got 9 so far. It is a little bit slow going though. We only have 4 hives here. There are 3 bees per hive, so they can increase the honey level 3 at a time. So every time the bees go for their second cycle, the dispenser triggers as it just did, and we should now have another bottle of honey inside the chest down here. Perfect. So that system is working pretty well. However, I kind of think we need to up the scale of our production here, and that is why down here in the corner I have some scaffolding that takes me down to another level where we have a few more hives set up. As we come down here, you'll see we've got 16 hives down here in this kind of rudimentary dugout section of the cave, which we could decorate a little bit more if we want the bees to feel more at home, but for now I think it's going to do the job. And basically I've managed to compact the whole setup down to the same components but layered on top of each other. So we have the item filter running into those hoppers down there, and then on top of that we have the setup with the comparators, the redstone directing into these blocks next to the dispensers, and hopefully this should all be working much the same way. Now some people, when I was building this on a live stream, have let me know that some people prefer to build these farms in the end or the nether, because apparently the bees, rather than being dictated by the kind of game tick cycle in the same way that villagers are, where they will go to sleep during the night and wake up during the day, bees actually do detect whether or not it is day or night in the overworld. And so if you move them to the nether or the end, you're guaranteed the production cycle to continue, which means ultimately if you are leaving your world, logged in around the clock and you're AFKing or something like that, you'll probably find that these things are a little bit more productive. However, I would prefer to build mine here in the overworld. I tend to sleep through the nights more often than not anyway, and that means that the weather cycle resets so rain doesn't happen, which is the other thing that puts bees off their honey production. And I think I should be okay just having a farm set up like this. I'm not looking for maximum efficiency or anything, but if you are, I recommend building something like this over in the end. We could also make slightly more efficient use of the space, but I wanted to make sure that there was enough area in here for the bees to be able to travel between the flowers and then make it back to their hives. So the next step really is to bring the bees down here, and you might think that might be a bit of a difficult task considering we are, at Y52, we are, some 12, 14 blocks below the surface right now, and getting the bees to follow you is a little bit of a tricky task even with flowers and with leads. But I have decided that it's a little bit easier just to wait for night to fall, wait for the bees to enter into their hives, and if we come up here we are probably guaranteed to get a more full hive, because I think the population up here, apart from the occasional skeletons shooting at me, the population up here is a little bit more developed. What I'm going to do is take these 2 hives using my Silk Touch pickaxe, and I'm going to take the bees with me. Did I pick that up? Okay, good, I did. I was a little bit worried that it might have fallen in the campfire. Luckily, campfires don't actually destroy stuff in the way that regular fires do, but still, I had to block these off to make sure that the bees weren't just going into the campfires and taking some fire damage, but luckily that seems to have worked out quite well. So now I can pop down here, I can replace 2 of the hives in this setup down here with the hives that I brought with me that should contain bees, and we can start building up the bee population down here in this space. So rather than have to worry about them running around after you, flying around after you with leads and flowers and stuff like that, you can just wait for the bees to retreat into the hives and then replace the hives in place here. And that's already activated because it had a honey level of 5, so we can check that this whole system works. Oh yeah, no, of course, it's not going to work quite yet because the item filters are next to each other, and so they have to fill up with a level of honey first. I wanted to make sure there was overflow protection for these. There's still a little bit of just leftover stuff in this chest, which I will probably be able to clear out with the space that's in my inventory right now. And after a while of honey production, that chest should start to fill up once the item filters are at capacity. This chest should start to fill up with all of the honey bottles these bees will be producing. Now, I'm not certain which beehive I just picked up, so I'm going to put one over... Oh, okay, I think that one should be empty because it's stacked with the other one, so let's see... Yes, okay, that was the other one that had the honey, so that one should be filled up with a honey block as well, and I can take these two beehives upstairs and replace them in the, natural arrangement of hives and nests that we have up here. And then I can just sleep through the night so that the bees will awaken from their hives on the lower level, and they should hopefully get to work producing a little bit of honey. I can take down some flowers. They will actually breed with 2 tall flowers as well, and all of the pollination behavior and stuff happens with 2 tall flowers. So if you need an easy supply of those and you don't have a flower farm set up, or you don't want to continuously bone meal the grass around to get some flowers, you can just build some 2 tall flowers. Just place some 2 tall flowers around and do the thing with those. But I think everything is set up down there, so I'm going to get some sleep. I'm going to see if the bees wake up, and then hopefully we should be able to breed them from there. Yep, there we go. We have some bees down here, a couple of juvenile ones and a couple of adults. That's looking perfect. Hopefully they should be absolutely fine pollinating around here, and I will probably do something to fill in the gaps in the corners here, probably fill those up with leaves or just more stone or something like that, just to make sure the bees don't end up flying into the redstone circuits and getting stuck. Yeah, one of them did just fly up the scaffolding, so I'll probably have to come up with a different design for this as well, maybe use a trapdoor or something like that. But it looks like we'll have a decent population of bees down here, and hopefully they'll just get busy pollinating with all the flowers and producing honey for us. And for our final progress update of the video, welcome back to the bee farm, where I've made a few decorative changes. I put a clock up on the wall so I could tell when it was nighttime and it was time to sleep, so that the bees would re-emerge. And as I do that now, hopefully, if they've done their work, we should start to see the true population of this area. Yes, my friends, we have bred up what I assume is about 50 bees, including one that we named Tag Dinner Bones. So we have Dinner Bee over here, looking kind of adorable with his legs in the air, perfectly capable of getting the pollen from the flowers and producing honey for us. So yeah, I surrounded the outside of this with leaves just so it was nice and easy to remove if we needed to get to the redstone for any reason. And we still don't have a means of refilling the dispensers inside of here, but that's fine. I think we'll probably just deal for now, and we should produce a ton of honey blocks before we will need to completely refill those dispensers. And when we do, of course, we'll get all of the glass bottles back, because the glass bottles are returned to the player when you craft honey blocks in the first place. Now let's take a look at the output of the farm, and this has been going for a little while. We already have over 8 stacks of honey bottles. Obviously, they only stack to 16, so that is 4 honey blocks per stack, which is not all that much, but it adds up. And the farm up on the surface with just 4 hives that we've had going for a lot longer has produced about the same amount. So already I have enough honey blocks that I can work with them. For now, we're probably looking at a total of about 48 so far, and of course, we could expand this with the proviso, of course, that putting a lot of entities into the world, putting a lot of bees out there, is going to be a little bit taxing on multiplayer servers that have to calculate their path finding and that kind of stuff, and even on single-player worlds, it might not be the best environment. I noticed that a couple of these bees are flying around, even though they have pollen, which means they cannot find their way to hives because all of the hives here are full. So that's a pretty clear indication that all of the hives in here are at capacity. We could add some more and harvest them manually if we wanted to add campfires in and that kind of stuff, but I think this will be enough for now, and just relying on this farm being around for a while is probably a good thing. You'll notice, though, that occasionally the bees that don't seem to have a home will be able to dip into the hives that are not occupied currently, and that one doesn't seem to be doing it, but the other one did. So I'm wondering if maybe they'll be able to find a vacant hive to deposit their pollen in and produce a little bit more honey that would speed up production. I think for the most part, though, they don't. Once a bee has chosen a hive as its home, they do seem to just stick to those homes, and I think this should be a fairly productive farm overall. The most important thing is going to be leaving it running in the background while we get a little bit more stuff done here around spawn, and I am planning on doing an automatic honeycomb harvester. I already have a pretty decent design figured out for that, so we're going to do that in an upcoming episode. And we can also use bees that have a little bit of pollen trailing from them to help crops grow, and that's going to be an important thing to check out in a future episode, because while it doesn't necessarily speed up crop production all that much compared to a bone meal farm, it is at no cost to the player. You don't have to worry about farming bone meal in order to get the crops to grow a little bit faster. So maybe a long-term solution, something that requires a little bit more patience, like breeding up all these bees had. I was able to breed up the bees over a long period of time. It took us probably about 3 hours to do this, to get all of the bees here at capacity, mainly because they keep going in and out of the hives, and once they've done that, the young bees don't really grow up all that fast. And I don't know if the cooldown for breeding bees still counts down while they are inside the hives, but I imagine it doesn't. It certainly means that the young ones can't really grow while they're inside the hives. It really takes a long time for them to grow up. So what I would recommend doing is getting a population of bees before you place all of these hives in. I really wanted to put them in place first just to test the system out, but realistically it's going to go a lot faster if you don't place all of the hives right away. And it is kind of cool watching them work, though. It's fun watching them just kind of buzz around the flowers and come in and out of the hives throughout the day. It's kind of like having a fish tank to look at or something like that. But that is where I'm going to leave you guys for today. We have a lot to explore with the other features of bees, though, with pollination and honey blocks and a honeycomb farm. That is all going to come up in future episodes. But for now, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.